up and they're going to speak about, we're going to have like a power talk kind of a thing, which they will be talking about 5 minutes each. So please head start over here and we can get started as soon as possible. Thank you. Now, then Rashid, then Gautam and Tasneem, and the last one is Suruk. So I will be keeping a timer of 5 minutes on my phone. So when I give you a signal, you get started. You'll get a 5 minutes time slot. And after that, once it is done, I will wave and that should be the end of your time. Okay? So we'll start off with Kalpana Pathak, who will be talking about out-of-cycle updates. Kalpana?
Okay, so I've got only 10 minutes, so I'm going to be super fast on what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Scrum process. So we've all heard a lot about Scrum and Agile and stuff like that, right? But I'm just going to give you a 10-minute talk on what exactly Scrum is, what is the process of Scrum, right? So my time has started, right? Okay, did you count the attaching thing? Okay, so let's get started. So what is Scrum? So Scrum is it's a framework which falls under the Agile umbrella, right? Now it's a framework. There are a lot of other processes which fall under Agile too, like Kanban. You know, there are different development methodologies which fall under Agile. Scrum is one of them, right? So it's a framework. The other thing is Scrum is not waterfall, right? Traditionally, we had the waterfall model, you know, which was used in software development, where you have analysis, you have requirement gathering, then you have development, then you have testing, then you have, you know, release, right? So everything is done at one stage of the project, right? So how many times or how many in documentation also, Scrum can be applied to your documentation projects as well. It can be applied to as about anything that you think of, right? So how many times in your documentation process have you got all the requirements right at the beginning? And then after that there's been no requirement changes. Has that ever happened? It's never happened, right? So you're always, there is, you know, when you think you're done, there's something more to be done, right? So it's not iterative, right? Waterfall says everything should fall in place at the beginning, then you go to the next stage, then the next, and so on and so forth. But Scrum is not like that. So what is Scrum based on? These are human values that Scrum is based on. It's based on transparency, it's based on iteration, and it is adaptive. Now what is transparency? So in a project there are various stakeholders, right? So you have the customers, you have the product management, you have, you know, developers. So this is transparent. Everybody can see everything at one time, what is going on in the process, right? So it's like a movie poster, you know, which keeps getting updated. So everybody can see what is happening on the project. So that's transparency. Iterative, you know, it's not like you do one stage at a time. You do a small bit, which is called a sprint, right? And then you perform another sprint and so on and so forth, right? So it keeps moving in short iterations. At the end of each iteration, the customer feedback is taken on how that iteration went, right? And the other bit is adaptive. It's adaptive to change. This model is built for change, right? The basis of Scrum is change, right? So if you do a small sprint, you develop, say, a small feature, you show it to your customer, he doesn't like it. You know, Scrum has a methodology where you can go back and change it, right? It's not like waterfall where you've reached development, so now there's nothing to do with requirements. That's it, I've frozen my requirements. There's no freeze, right? Okay, and it's customer first approach. So whatever you're developing for a stakeholder, so you put him first, right? So what are the components of Scrum? So Scrum consists of process, the Scrum process, the roles which people have to play in Scrum, artifacts and events. Artifacts are basically charts or you know, diagrams which mark your progress, and events are nothing but meetings, right? So this is what Scrum is in short. How much time do I have? Okay, so it's a bit difficult to do this in 10 minutes, but this is what Scrum is. So you have a product backlog, you have a sprint backlog, you have in process and done, right? Done, the definition of done is shippable. As simple as that. Shippable means you can give it to a customer and he can use it, right? I'm talking in a software sense, right? So a product backlog, okay, as all of us have had backlogs at some point in time, right, while studying. So it's the same concept here, right? It's a backlog, something to be done, you know. So whatever is to be done is in the product backlog list. Everything is in the product backlog list. The sprint backlog is something that is going to be taken for progress. In progress is what is currently going on, and done is shippable, right? So this is what it looks like. Let's just take a quick look at the role. So the product owner is the person who fills the product backlog, right? There is no such thing as a project manager in Scrum. There is no project manager, okay? So let's quickly look at the roles. The product owner is the guy who talks to the customers, gathers the requirements, gathers, what has to be done, what are the features, right? What are the features that customers implement, and put it in the product backlog. So you'll have a laundry list of things. It's like a kitchen sink. Everything and anything that the project needs, right? If you require to go out and buy a marker for the project, that will also come here. It's a list of everything, right? So this is the guy who collects that list, right? The other one is the Scrum Master. Now the Scrum Master is a servant management role. When I say servant management role, is he's not there to boss over you. He's not your manager. He's not going to give you a rating at the end of your project saying, you did well or you did badly. So this guy is a facilitator. He makes Scrum possible. He has to follow the methodologies of Scrum, right? And a development team is basically a team of people who actually go ahead and develop something. So here the development team, there are no skill sets which are which stand out. So there is no developer, there is no tester per se. Everybody has skills all around. So a tester can be a developer, or a developer can write test code. A documentation guy can also do some testing. So everybody does everything, and you work as a team, right? That is the basis of Scrum. You work as a team, right? Ideal world scenario, okay, everybody has to work as a team. So the sprint backlog is actually done only by the development team, right? What does the development team do? They look at the stories here and they say that, okay, for this sprint, we're going to pick stories 5, 6, whatever, They decide what they're going to work on. They decide the dates. They decide how it is to be done. The project owner, right, has got nothing to say. The Scrum Master sees that everything is in place, right? So these guys pick up stories to do. They do it, they break it down. I'm not getting into, the details of it because there's no time. I'm just giving you a quick run through. And, they decide how it's going to be done, and then it goes out to done. So when it comes to the development team, the team works as a cohesive unit. It's thorough teamwork. Okay, so artifacts are basically your charts. So we have two artifacts in Scrum. One is the sprint burn down chart, and the other is the release burn down. Release is nothing but X and Y axis on which you plot your sprints and you plot the time, right? A sprint burn down is per sprint. Okay, a sprint is a short development cycle, right? A burst, right? Okay, so Scrum comes from a rugby term called scrummage. Have you seen rugby when there's a guy who's tossed up and throws the ball and everybody's, so that's what it is all about, right? So you work as a team. Okay, so quickly, you have meetings in Scrum. You can't escape meetings. You have to have meetings, right, for things to go on. So we have what is called as a release planning meeting, which is done by the product owner. Okay, now here you actually don't set a release date. Iteratively you will come up to your release date, ideally. But in real world, you get a project and the date comes before the project, right? So it is workable even then. You have to fit it in that, but basically a release planning meeting happens in Scrum. A daily Scrum meeting, which is a 15-minute meeting for all the team members, where you don't discuss, what problems you're facing. You just tell them that, today you're going to do this, tomorrow you're going to do something else, and so on and so forth, tasks for the day. A sprint review meeting, which takes place after each sprint. This is where you'll showcase what you've done, your code to your customer, and once after customer approval or project owner approval, it goes out into the done bucket, right? Until then, it's not done. And then you have a sprint retrospective meeting where you discuss what went well and what didn't go well in each sprint. Okay? So, okay, I got a minute left and I'm done. Okay, so this is what it's all about, basic 10-minute crash course on Scrum. So you can implement this in documentation. You can actually work with your project teams so that you can run with them. You can do more that you do. I've heard a lot about doing testing and writing UI messages and stuff like that, this is a perfect place for you to do that. You can actually get into the development cycle and pull with the team and get things done. Any questions?
We have 30 seconds.
Okay, so I'm done. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sanjay.